Goats in the graveyard, or is it ghosts in the graveyard?
Hi friends. Well, I'm getting ready to tell you a spooky story. Now, I'm going to wait till a little later when it gets dark outside to tell you that spooky story, because it seems that scary stories can seem even scarier at night. So I will wait till then to tell you the story. But before that, I wanted to tell you a little bit about where my story came from. So this is a true story that was told to me by my grandmother. Now, my grandma lived a long time ago. She was born in 1913. So that is a long time ago, over 100 years ago. In fact, the story that she told me is a true story about what happened to her when she was about your age, which was 100 years ago. That's a long time ago. And at that time, in the 1920s, a lot of people didn't have electricity. And so when it got dark outside, they had to use candles or lamps. And their lamps weren't like lamps that we have now. Since they didn't have electricity, they couldn't switch on a switch or turn the switch on the lamp and have the light bulb turn on and give light. Instead, they had lamps that were fueled by some sort of fuel. Could be oil, or it could be kerosene, something that was flammable, which means it could carry a flame, it could catch on fire. So they had lamps like these. I have a bunch of lamps here that my family had from a long time ago, and they passed down to me. Some of them are oil lamps, and some of them are kerosene lamps. So I don't use the kerosene lamp, but you know, when the electricity goes out because of a storm, I still use this lamp. This one has oil and it's safe to burn inside. So here are the parts of the lamp. It has, this part holds the oil. My oil is clear, but you can kind of see it in there. Sometimes they color it to make it pretty, maybe a red color, but this one's clear. And then you could see there's something sticking into the oil. It's a wick, and it goes up to there. And it soaks the oil to the top of the wick. And then I could turn, it's a squeaky knob, but I could turn this, make the wick longer or shorter. And then another part of the lamp that's very important is this thing. This is called a chimney, a glass chimney. Some people might call it a glass globe. I call it a chimney. And it kind of works the same way as a chimney in a fireplace would. It draws the heat upward and it protects the flame. So if I'm doing my homework, I don't want to have an open candle nearby because I might accidentally knock the candle over and catch my homework on fire, or worse, catch something else on fire. So they wanted to be as safe as possible at that time. So they had chimneys on their lamps. So that's how that chimney fits on that lamp. Now, as you can see, the chimneys came in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So this chimney is skinny at the top and then has this bulb thing here. And then this one kind of looks like it, but look, they're different sizes, even though they're the same shape. So I couldn't put this big one on this little lantern. It wouldn't fit. Every lantern had its special size chimney. And it seems like it would be smart to have lanterns with all the same size chimney, but I don't have that. In fact, every single lantern I have here seems to have a different size chimney. This one may be able to fit on that one. Now that's a little loose, so that wouldn't fit either. So they have different, this one is my favorite, but this one's very fragile It's just a straight, skinny chimney. So that one goes there. And you can see this chimney, this lantern, is meant to hang on a wall, and it has a mirror. What do you think that mirror's for back here? Do you have any ideas? I think some of you are on the right track. The mirror helps reflect the light, so it takes the light out further into the room. And this chimney, this one's a different shape, but it also has a pretty top to it. So these are the lanterns I have, and the chimney is an important part to be safe and to draw the heat upwards. I'm going to light this lantern. Let me see. So first I need to take the chimney off. I have a match. And I'm going to light the wick. Now, if the flame is too big, whoa, I can bring the wick down a little, turn it down so it's not too big. Then I want to put, whoa. Now I know my flame's too big, so I definitely need to turn my wick down. So I'm going to put my wick down into my lantern. There we go. That's about how I would burn my lantern. So it's important to keep the chimneys clean, because that way more light goes out. My chimneys to my lanterns aren't very clean, but these lamps will be okay for telling the story tonight. So this is an important part of my story because my grandmother was sent to the store to get one of these. The very last one they had broke. They're made of glass, and if you drop them, they can break easily. And she had to go to the store to get a chimney for their lantern, their lamp, so that they could see that evening. And it was almost dark when she had to make that trip to the store. All right, friends, I will be back when it's dark to tell you what happened to my grandmother. Well, friends, hi, it's getting dark outside, so this is the perfect time to tell you my story. I mean, after all, this is the time of day that my grandmother had her adventure. You see, it was getting toward evening time after dinner, and my grandmother was about 11 years old, and she was playing outside. Her stepmother was inside cleaning. And as she got to cleaning the glass chimney of the family lamp, she accidentally dropped it and it shattered on the floor. My grandmother's dad called her in from playing. "Elizabeth," he said, "I need you to go to Mr. Wagenhofer's store to get another chimney for our lamp. You don't need to remember the size of the chimney. Just tell Mr. Wagenhofer it's for the Dorguy family, and I'll be by, about tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, to pay him." Well, my grandmother told her father that she was too busy playing and didn't want to go. But the truth was that she didn't want to walk through the cemetery alone to get to the store. After all, the sun was already low in the sky. Her father said, "Elizabeth, I don't ask too much of you. So when I ask you now and then to help with something, I expect you will do it." Well, my grandmother couldn't argue with that. She had to go. Well, this is a map of my grandma's adventure. Here's her house. She went out of the door of her house, down her street, took a right on the main road, took another right until she came to a bridge that went over railroad tracks. She had to cross the bridge and then walk this long walk on the road through the cemetery. It was a very large cemetery. When she got to the end of the road, all she had to do was cross to Mr. Wagenhofer's store. As she walked through the cemetery, she hoped that it was still light outside when it was time to make her return walk home. Hopefully, she thought, Mr. Wagenhofer won't talk too much and delay my return. Well, when my grandmother got to Mr. Wagenhofer's store, she had to wait for him to finish with another customer. Oh, drat! She didn't expect that. Oh, the customer and Mr. Wagenhofer were talking on and on and on about the weather and the price of coal and the neighbor's cow. Oh, but then my grandmother was getting so impatient. She was thinking, hurry up, hurry up. And finally, the customer left. And then Mr. Wagenhofer asked how he could help her. Well, she quickly said, "Hi, Mr. Wagenhofer. My name is Elizabeth Dorguy, and my stepmom was cleaning the chimney of our lamp today, and, well, she dropped it and it broke. May we please have another chimney? My dad will be by tomorrow to pay for the chimney." Well, Mr. Wagenhofer said, "Well, of course, my dear." Then he went into the back of the store to fetch the chimney. When he brought it out to the counter, he started to wrap it in paper. Well, he noticed that my grandmother was getting antsy and she kept looking out the window. So he said, "Elizabeth, you must be careful carrying this glass chimney home. Don't walk too fast. Most certainly do not run. Watch out for cracks, curbs, and holes in the sidewalk. Watch your step. Don't drop this chimney or fall on it." Well, she said, "Oh, yes, Mr. Wagenhofer. Thank you, Mr. Wagenhofer." And then she took the wrapped chimney and out the store door she went. It had gotten a lot darker while she was in the store. By the light of dusk, she stepped down the front steps of the store and started her walk across the street. She walked quickly but carefully. She listened intently to the night sounds. Hey, wait. What was that sound? She thought. It sounds like clanging. Oh, no, it sounds like something's in the graveyard. She heard it again. She walked faster. Then she heard it again. This time it sounded louder. Oh no, whatever it is, it's getting closer. Oh dear, she thought. She picked up her pace. Oh, it sounded closer yet. It sounded closer yet. Oh, she told herself, I don't believe in ghosts. Yet it didn't help. She was still very frightened. Oh, it was catching up to her. She was afraid to look up. Ah! What's that sound? She started to run. Well, my grandmother made it to the end of the cemetery. She ran over the bridge. She ran out to the end of Cemetery Road and took a left on Main Street and a left into her street and then up the steps into her house. And you know what? She did not drop that chimney or fall on that chimney, but she was frightened when she went in and slammed the door. My grandmother rushed in the house. Her father looked up from what he was doing to see my grandmother out of breath, looking frazzled and frightened, almost frightened to death. And he asked her, "Well, what happened to you?" Well, my grandmother said that there was something in the cemetery clanging. And her father said, "Elizabeth, that's nonsense, silliness. Your imagination's playing tricks on you. There's nothing in the cemetery." Well, my grandmother did not argue, but she knew that she heard something strange and scary in the graveyard. Friends, what do you think she heard? Do you think my grandmother heard something, or was it just her imagination? Do you think she heard a ghost? Well, what do you think she heard? What made that clanging sound? They did find out. Let me tell you the rest of the story. You see, the next day, her dad went to the store and everyone was there talking about Mrs. Lippincot's cow that got loose and spent the whole night wandering around in the cemetery. Well, my grandmother's father was a good man, and he found it was important to tell the truth, even when it meant admitting a mistake he made. So he went home to my grandmother, his daughter, and said, "Elizabeth, you were right. You did hear clanging in the cemetery. But it wasn't anything scary like a ghost. It was the bell on Mrs. Lippincot's cow. Her cow was loose in the cemetery last night." Oh, but you know, Elizabeth, I'm sorry that I didn't believe you. Well, my grandmother was relieved. It wasn't a ghost. I mean, after all, she didn't believe in ghosts. And that, my friends, is the end of the story. So, friends, my grandmother's family told that story over and over again at family get-togethers when they would sing, dance, play music, and tell stories. They didn't have TV or radio. Storytelling was part of their entertainment. You know, my grandmother told me this story from her childhood and other stories many, many, many times, which is why I remember her stories to this day. I learned so much about my grandmother and her adventures. She was the best, by far the best storyteller in my family. I'm grateful for her stories and feel that I know so much more about her than any of my other grandparents or great-grandparents. Since she told her stories over and over, it helped her remember details such as the names of the store owner and the owner of the cow. I encourage you also to tell your stories. Write them down in a journal or draw and label illustrations like the map I did. Write a blog. That way you can use your device. Ask your grown-ups and the oldest people that you know in your family, grandparents, great-grandparents. Ask them to tell you a story about their childhood. Use a device to record them telling their stories. You know, my grandmother died almost 20 years ago, but I still feel close to her because I have her stories. Some of her stories have been told and retold for 100 years. Oh, and I don't know if any of you were scared by my story, but if you like scary stories, here are some scary stories to listen to and to read.
There are all sorts of books to borrow on Hoopla. Terrifying tales to tell at night. This one's scary when you listen to the audio version. Ghosts. This is about investigating ghosts. All sorts of tales about ghosts in a dark, dark room and other scary stories. The one about the ribbon still gives me the heebie-jeebies in this book, and I've read it a long time ago. The Ghosts Go Haunting. The Ghost of Donley Farm. Ghost Cat. Goldilocks and the Three Ghosts. That one doesn't sound as scary. And how to write a journal. And writing a blog so that you can write your own stories. Nellie Bly and investigative journalism for kids. Then you can borrow some videos on Can It Be Kids? The little old lady who was not afraid of anything. Scaredy Squirrel at Night. And you can research your family history on Ancestry Library. Visit library.car.org and visit our YouTube channel, CCPL Kids and Family. Oh no, what's that? What's that sound? Oh no! Goats in the graveyard! I got scared. Did you see me run? Oh, sassafras, root beer, you playing tricks on me?